This is Ellen Madono, and I'm speaking to you from Tokyo Homeopathy, and today I have a student with me. We can say your name, right?
Sure.
Okay. Cynthia Sue, and this is really for people who are privately studying, so. But, it might be released to the world. All right?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So, we have been looking at a remedy that Cynthia knows nothing about, but describe the situation. You gave it to your daughter, right?
Mm-hmm. For her rash.
Yeah, speak up more.
And her irritability.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She was throwing tantrums.
Uh-huh.
And and she seemed very irritable when, it's hot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I thought maybe she needed belladonna at first.
Uh-huh.
But so I used polarity analysis.
Uh-huh.
And belladonna didn't show up, but we got Aconite as one of the remedies.
Uh-huh.
And, I started to look up the repertory as well. And we decided to let her try Aconite.
Why did you start thinking that belladonna would be the right remedy?
By reading up on the Materia Medica, it sounded like a fit.
A fit, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And belladonna is a very typical repertory. She had a flu kind of symptoms also? Just the rash.
Just the rash.
Just the rash,
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, and a rash is a really hard one to find a remedy for.
Mm-hmm.
But what saved the day?
What saved the day?
Yeah, why did we find a remedy?
Why?
Uh-huh.
Well, why do we find a
rashes, skin, you said skin irritation is really hard.
Uh-huh. Yeah, her moods.
Yeah.
That helped us.
Yeah.
To find the remedy, I think.
Yeah. What was her mood like?
She was irritable. She was throwing things.
Uh-huh.
And shouting.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I forgot the word. What that word was that described that behavior.
You found the word in a Materia Medica, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And now you really want to pick up on that word because you saw it there, right?
Right.
And it's one of those old-fashioned words, I'm guessing. Something like trivial kinds of problems were bothering her.
Right, she would get angry with trivial things.
Yeah, and trivial is a word that you can use. You put in anger and you put in trivial together. And it's a very good way to look up and find the right remedy. Okay, so it's very good to use the repertory when you find these kind of old-fashioned Victorian kinds of words, that's the time when you want to use the repertory to use those words to pick up the right remedy. Mm-hmm. You're not going to find it by just throwing things. You're going to find it, but you're not going to, this particular kind of anger. There's so many kinds of anger that it won't help you. But you had a skin irritation, and it was just red, right?
Mm-hmm. And itchy.
Itchy, but that's how skin irritations are in general. So you'll never find it just skin irritable. She has skin irritation now, right?
Yeah.
Without something like the throwing things and the anger over trivial kinds of things, you wouldn't find it, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are too many remedies for that.
Right. And her father, many years ago, I gave him sulphur. Mm-hmm. And that's another reason why I saw that aconite and I thought, sometimes these remedies run in the family. Mm-hmm. So if her father used sulphur, she might use sulphur someday too. Mm-hmm. And also a remedy that is related to sulphur might be useful. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. So aconite is said to be the acute of sulphur. Acute means that it's the remedy that's used when the problem happens suddenly, or it happens suddenly even 20 years ago, but it happened suddenly and it wasn't taken care of. Okay, so, and then we found it in polarity analysis, right? Yeah. Now, I gave Cynthia this book here. It's called An Insight into Plants, and I didn't give it to her, but it's in my library. And this was written by Rajan Sankaran, who's a very famous Indian homeopath. And I asked Cynthia to read the case here. What were the instructions I gave you for the case? How should you read it?
Read it and see if any of that resonates with you. Like, see if there's a match. I'd like to pick up some words that might have meaning.
Meaning for what?
For my daughter's case.
That's how you took it, which it's a very good way to take it. But what I really meant was, maybe you're reading a remedy that you don't even know the person. You know the person, so it's much easier to pick up. That's why I want all of you to learn how to find remedies, because you're going to learn the remedies by finding the people who the remedy will heal. But anyway, what I asked Cynthia to do was to look for the center of the case. There's 2 cases here. I'm going to scan these, and so everybody should be able to read them. But the center of the case, and that's kind of too vague. What do you mean by the center of the case, right? Isn't that how you felt? Okay, so we're going to kind of explore what I mean by the center of the case. And so, Cynthia, can you tell me some of the things that you found?
In one of the cases, I thought being very sensitive and reactive is pretty major in it. Yes. And it's sensitive among plants. Plants in general, the characteristic of plants is they're sensitive. But this one is very... And what about the reactivity? Is the reactivity kind of a slow reactivity, or... It's sudden. It's a very sudden reactivity. And in the cases, the reactivity was very sudden. And that does characterize aconite. Okay. Sankaran treats a whole group of remedies, including belladonna, that occur very suddenly. And belladonna and aconite are, in general, seen as the major remedies for flus and colds. Can you slide forward more? Yeah. It's not surprising that you found belladonna, and we actually did quite a bit of research, right? We really looked online at very traditional texts, and I can't remember how we differentiated between aconite and belladonna.
Well, I think one important thing is belladonna didn't show up in priority analysis.
Yeah, that's really important. But still, I wanted to differentiate because it's very typical of a child her age to use belladonna. But one big clue I had was I looked at her and she's thin.
Not chubby.
Yeah, she's not chubby at all. And belladonna is the acute of Calcarea carbonica. And Calcarea carbonica, calcarb, is chubby. Okay, so, and belladonna is generally chubbier. And belladonna and aconite, both of these people are very vibrant kind of people. And I think your daughter falls into that category. So Sulphur is also a vibrant, very healthy person. Some remedies the people are not so vibrant to begin with. But, so aconite, let's pick up something else that you found.
Bursting, like the sensation is bursting and it's sudden.
Sudden, yeah. And what do you think about that word bursting? We were talking about the center of a case. How does bursting relate to being to the center of the case?
Bursting. Like an explosion.
Yes, an explosion.
I don't know.
Yeah, but it doesn't appear to you so important that they're explosive. But when I read this case, I could see his reactions are very fast, and he reacts in a kind of explosive way. He says he has to help people.
Right.
He's very compulsive, right? Very obsessive. And actually, for years, I don't know why, but these cases stuck with me. And it's what they did was they emphasized the center of the case, whereas the traditional texts, they're telling you, this is how you use aconite for colds and flus. And this is how you use it for somebody who's in shock, or somebody who's deathly afraid that they're going to die at 12 o'clock tomorrow. Those are the symptoms, the basic symptoms for aconite. But that doesn't give you the sense of a center of a case. But if you read the case and you can see both you can see this very strong emotional aspect. I'm going to die at 12 o'clock tomorrow. That's pretty emotional, right? This extremism of emotions. You're going to see that in aconite.
And it says that it just comes up, and then after that, there's nothing.
Yes, that's your daughter, right?
Well, yeah, she's 2.
She's 2, but it really does characterize her, I think, just as much as she's thin. It characterizes her. Yeah. And so by reading this, you don't have the confidence now, but you actually know the person. So you have a little more confidence about aconite, I think, and having read the case. There are a lot of cases online, and if even very new remedies have cases online, and the better the homeopath is, the better they're going to pick out the center of the case when they describe the case. Sankaran is an excellent homeopath. I don't follow his method or anything, but he's an excellent homeopath, and his cases are very well described. And so if you can read those cases, it's very helpful. That's another reason why reading, for example, Kent's Materia Medica lectures. Those are very helpful because he's a very perceptive homeopath. He's going to use all the important little keywords for looking things up on the internet. And that'll be very useful to you. Okay, could you name anything else?
Did we talk about wandering?
Wandering, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you thought maybe was it in both of the cases? I don't think so.
Yeah, one of the cases.
Actually, wandering is characteristic of the entire Raniculae family. Ranunculaceae. So it's a family, and it includes aconite, Staphysagria, pulsatilla, and Simisafuga. Okay, those are all very important remedies. So it's one of those big, major homeopathic families. All of the families in botany are not necessarily major families in homeopathy. But it's helpful to know a family. And if you look on the net and you look at the name of the family and you look at, put in the word family or botanical group or something, you're going to find people describing the Raniculaceae family. And I suggest doing that if you've got a case. I use my cases as opportunities to study, so I actually spend more time studying them than I need to. But if I have time, it's extremely useful because the person is right in front of you. The textbook is there. Okay, so go on. Anything else? The wandering, especially wandering pains, are very typical of it's typical of pulsatilla, really, but it's typical of that whole family. Okay.
So I was wondering if an itch can be considered a wandering pain, because suddenly it's, starts to itch here and then itch there, so it feels like it's wandering, isn't it?
It does sound like it's wandering. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can find wandering itch, mm-hmm. and you wouldn't think of the word wandering actually. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're going to find it, but wandering is. But it's usually about symptoms that are wandering. But you can actually use the wandering symptom, that the symptom keeps changing place. Mm-hmm. You can use one rubric for that, and mm-hmm. itch as another rubric, and red itch for another one. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And another thing you can do is you look under Aconite, mm-hmm. and find out the remedies for. Mm-hmm. Find out if how much wandering is in Aconite. Mm-hmm. So if Aconite has a lot of wandering, mm-hmm. you're going to be interested. Excepting I don't think your Materia Medica is going to let you. It doesn't have enough power to do that.
Yeah. And so far I haven't seen wandering in Aconite.
Yeah. I don't think of wandering at all mm-hmm. as an Aconite thing. It's just mm-hmm. bursting, mm-hmm. sudden. That's the core of the remedy. Mm-hmm. Okay, very intense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Strong. Mm-hmm. Those are characteristics of the remedy. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we got into this business of families, and why am I so excited by a family? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine why I would be excited by a family?
Well, maybe because you can. A family consists of more than one person, like one unit. Mm-hmm. There are other units too, and then they have relationships with each other. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, so mm-hmm. I'm guessing, it's much more interesting than just looking at one thing.
Yes, exactly. And this is from Jan Scholten's book, and it's these remedies are put on trees. Here's a picture of a tree, and so where the remedy exists on the tree tells you about the evolution, but it's going to also tell you about how it's related to other remedies based on its family relationships, because we know what the evolution of plants are due to DNA analysis. And we know about these plants in great detail. And homeopaths are now using that detail to help them find remedies. So Aconite is a certain place, exists in a certain place on that tree. So anyways, these families are very interesting, but it goes a little bit further than that. The families, especially the major families, are all well described, but beyond the families, a man named Jan Scholten has put together a huge amount of research on the periodic tables. And the periodic tables will tell you, and what he's done is he's described all of the elements on the periodic tables. Most of those, especially at the top of the periodic tables, are remedies already, and most of them are well known. At the bottom of the palette, we're filling out the entire periodic table now, and we're using things like radiation, and I actually was cured by using a radioactive remedy. They're very powerful, very helpful, and but he's mapped these out, and I'm not going to describe this right now. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the family relationships are mapped onto the periodic table. And so are the animals, the different animals and the family relationships among animals.
Mm-hmm.
And then you begin to see there's a much more refined map of this whole thing. And the third thing is the nosodes.
Mm-hmm.
And you bumped into this word miasm. How did it occur with Aconite?
So it's acute miasm.
Acute miasm.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is Rajan Sankaran's idea of miasm. Okay, miasm is basically a family of remedies that relate to one another, but he's not using it in the way that I use it. Okay, he's using miasm or the way that Hahnemann used it. It's something like aconite isn't necessarily, it's not a diseased tissue, but the idea should come from a diseased tissue according to me and the way that I study and the teachers that I study with. But it's not a diseased tissue. Miasms are infectious diseases, and we use the pathological information about the disease itself. We use the clinical information from using the homeopathic remedy, and also the clinical information about about people who have the disease. This is rather complicated, but the basic idea is that these bacterias are called nosode, N-O-S-O-D-E. Nosodes are used in miasmatic treatment. Okay, treatment with something like lycopodium or aconite or belladonna, or a mineral like salt, natrum mur, or calcarea carbonica. All these minerals and plants the treatment is fairly straightforward, and you can basically use the polarity analysis. We have a few nosodes in the polarity analysis, among them Medorrhinum, Lycinum, which is rabies, and Tuberculinum. These are all very traditional nosodes. And the way that you use a nosode is somewhat different than the other remedies, because sometimes the indications for the nosode are not as well developed. In fact, you can have a case where the person is just not getting completely well, and you use the nosode to open up the case and then to give other remedies or to cure the case with the nosode. But it's kind of theoretically, it's counter to the original idea of homeopathy. The original idea of homeopathy was that you use the symptoms of the patient and to figure out which remedy to give to him. Mm-hmm. But this one is the nosode or the miasmatic remedy. You're looking at something that's maybe a little bit broader than symptoms. Mm-hmm. It's something like let me see.
It's something that's more mental?
No, well, we use a lot of mental things. Mm. It has something that's more like the entire energy of the person. Mm. Or like they're extremely passionate, and it extends to the sexual sphere. It extends to their dreams about the world. It extends to politics, everything. They're like that, this passion, this huge passion. Well, you would think of tuberculinum, you would think of Medorrhinum among them. Mm-hmm. And then there are certain remedies that you would put in the same category as tuberculinum, like phosphorus would be in the same remedy as tuberculinum. Mm-hmm. It would be the tubercular miasm. Medorrhinum would have thuja, as being it's a plant remedy, but we use it in the same kind of way of thinking that we use to choose Medorhinum. Okay, this passionate kind of person. Okay, I can't get too deep into this, but all I'm trying to tell you is that there are categories of remedies. Okay, so we have the plants and the animals and the minerals. Everybody can imagine that. And then we have these viruses and bacteria and fungi. Okay, those funguses are, they don't know whether to call them animals or plants. I mean, they're closer to animals, it seems. And they're actually, they're very powerful and much closer to nosodes in the sense of their kind of broad, the way you choose them is based on broad understandings of the person. Okay, not just tiny symptoms that you pick out of the materia medica. Okay, but you also use those tiny symptoms for well-described remedies like Medorhinum, like Tuberculinum, like Lycinum. They're all traditional remedies, and they have very specific small symptoms. Okay, so you're going to find them in polarity analysis also. They'll come up. Okay,
Those symptoms, you mean?
those tiny symptoms and the remedies will come up. Okay, and one of the reasons why I'm eager to get you to the point where you're, this is a kind of talk that we don't have with beginners in homeopathy. But if you're going to do polarity analysis, you need to understand that remedies are going to come up, and then when you look at the traditional books, it's not going to be such a great fit. So if you had Aconite came up, actually we found a pretty good fit, but if it was like what was described in the case that Cynthia studied, if it was like that, then you're not going to find those it's that case couldn't be solved. If you read the case, Rajan Sankaran, this famous homeopath, didn't solve it after I think 4 misses.
Yeah, it took a few years.
Few years and many remedies, right? So if you're struggling and a famous homeopath like Rajan Sankaran struggles, cut yourself some slack. Okay, it's important, and your patient also needs to cut you some slack. Most of them won't, but wishful thinking. Okay, so
They might cut you off, but not cut you off some slack.
okay, yes, they'll cut you off.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. So I think that's enough for today, and I've really been having a good time with Cynthia. I hope many of you can come or we'll join together on the net and do this because this is fun. Okay.